Automation doesn't fix chaos, it scales it. Most companies don't have an AI problem, they have a systems problem, and they're trying to solve it with tools. This isn't tools versus architecture argument, it's a leverage versus maturity argument. They have a system and they're trying to solve it with tools, and that just doesn't move them forward. So architecture determines stability, automation determines velocity, so how fast we run. If velocity outruns stability, then the volatility of the AI uh, initiative will fail, and volatility eventually becomes a capital event. Every week, there's a new AI platform. Every executive asks, "What tool should we use?" Almost no one asks, "What systems are we plugging in this into?" And obviously, that's a mistake. AI doesn't fix any structural disorder the company might have. It actually amplifies it. So if your operations are disciplined, if they're documented, if they're owned, if they're sequenced, then AI increases leverage. However, if your operations are fragmented, manual, politically siloed, and attribution weak, then AI actually increases variability. And investors don't lose sleep over tools, they lose sleep over unpredictability. So let me share a pattern that I often see repeated. Company has manual reporting, has disconnected systems, has a spreadsheet for forecasting. They've cobbled together an ad hoc coordination in email or possibly WhatsApp. They have multiple team members influencing the same KPIs. So instead of mapping processes and ownership, instead of fixing handoffs, instead of designing attribution that is legitimate and survives scale, they add AI forecasting, or they might add AI pricing, or they might add AI optimization. So now forecasting errors scale faster, attribution gets murkier, harder to figure out where's the ROI coming from. Financial trust the output less. Leadership says that performance is AI driven, but nobody can isolate the causation. So from the outside, it looks modern. From the inside, it becomes harder to explain the outcome. The automation amplification disorder. That's what we're talking about. Manual systems slow down mistakes, automation speeds them up. Manual friction hides flaws, automation removes friction and exposes the flaws at scale. If your data is inconsistent, automation spreads inconsistency. If your handoffs are unclear, automation hardens confusion. If your ownership boundaries are vague, automation concentrates accountability without clarifying it. So that's not modernization, that's amplified fragility. There are three layers that must exist before automation increases velocity. Number one, process clarity. Number two, ownership clarity. And number three, attribution clarity. Process clarity means that workflows are mapped out and understood. Ownership clarity means that one person is accountable for the outcomes across all boundaries. Attribution clarity means that you can explain what caused whatever happens within multiple systems when they interact. So even if those systems are weak, automation does not create strength, it multiplies weakness. And multiplied weakness becomes volatility. For capital allocators, this is where underwriting risk gets mispriced. If and when you see a portfolio company aggressively layering AI tools into operations, don't ask what platforms they're using. Ask what operating maturity existed before this new leverage increased. Because AI multiples whatever already exists. So it multiplies clarity, it also multiplies disorder. So if you deploy automation into chaos, you don't increase intelligence, you increase unpredictability. Unpredictability at scale becomes valuation pressure. Capital doesn't mind experimentation, but capital punishes variance. Automation in immature systems doesn't create growth risk, it creates variance risk. And market price variance is brutal. It causes forecast drift, margins compress unexpectedly, attribution weakens, earnings calls get more defensive, and leadership says, "We're investing heavily in AI." But what they actually have done is inject a velocity into a system that wasn't structurally coherent. They've increased speed without controls that creates instability, and instability at scale becomes a capital story. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Some leadership teams chase tools because diagnosis is harder. It's easier to buy software than to redesign a process. It's easier to automate a broken handoff than it is to fix it. It's easier to layer AI on top of siloed incentives than resolve ownership. But if your first instinct when facing operational complexity is to find another AI platform, you're not leading transformation. You're avoiding the structural work. And avoidance shows up later as forecast volatility, margin instability, insufficiency, structural confusion, and eventually investor discomfort. Architecture is not optional before automation. It is the control system that prevents volatility from compounding. If process ownership is unclear, if handoffs are undocumented, attribution is weak, if incentives conflict, automation will not fix it. It will accelerate it. And accelerated disorder is not innovation, it's just amplified fragility. So before underwriting aggressive AI adoption, capital should ask one simple question. Did governance and operating architect mature before velocity increased? If not, volatility is already embedded, and embedded volatility eventually becomes visible valuation. That's not an AI problem. That's a structural leverage problem, and leverage always shows up in the numbers. Thanks for joining today. Look forward to your feedback and comments.